Today I'm going to show you two Photoshop techniques to take an image from this to this. So let's get started. So this is a photograph I've taken of a 1/6 scale TBLeague model. And one of the things you'll find when you photograph these is a lot of times there's some really odd artifacts that will show up on the skin. And you can't necessarily see it right now, but as soon as you start adding contrasted detail, it'll start to show up and really detract from the image. So I want to start out with a really clean canvas before adding a lot of contrast and detail. So I'm going to do that by using Camera Raw Filter. So I'm going to go up to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, I'm going to go to the Basic tab, I'm going to go to the Clarity slider, and I'm going to reduce the clarity by right around 40. And you can see how that just smooths out that skin. The next step is I'm going to go to Detail, and I'm going to do Noise Reduction by about 40, Color Noise Reduction by about 40. And because we've removed a lot of detail at this point, I want to sharpen this image back up to around 100. So this now gives us the canvas that we want in order to start doing these techniques. So our first step in doing the blend and mode technique is to copy this layer twice. So I'm going to grab the layer and I'm going to take it down to this plus. Then I'm going to grab it again and take it down to the plus. And this is going to create two new copies of the original image. Now I'm going to select the top layer and do a couple of things that you don't see done that often in Photoshop. The first thing I'm going to do is put this in a blend mode of vivid light. And then I'm going to invert this image. And the reason I'm going to invert it is I'm actually going to use a blur in order to bring detail back out. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut of Control-I to invert it. So I've clicked Control-I. This gives us this gray silhouette. Now I'm going to come up to Filter, Blur, Surface Blur. And what I found is a radius of about 60 and a threshold of about 30 is about a good area of numbers to get the effect I'm after. And these can be adjusted up and down to give the effect that you're looking for. But by and large, I found these numbers to be pretty good across multiple images. So I'm going to hit OK to apply that surface blur. And now the problem I have, though, what I'd really like to do is do an overlay blend mode in order to have this look blended with that bottom layer. But if I change that at this point, it changes the look of this layer. So how I'm going to get around that is I'm going to actually take this layer and I'm going to merge it down. So I'm going to select this layer, the top layer, and I'm going to hit Control-E. I've merged that down. I have that same look. And now I can blend this with the original image. But I want to do one more thing first, and that is I want to remove all of the color from this layer. And there's a couple of ways I could do this, but in this case I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustment, Hue Saturation, and this is going to remove the saturation right at the pixel level. So I'm going to desaturate that all the way to -100. Now we end up with this great black and white dodge and burn look that we can now apply to our original image. And I'm going to do that by selecting a blend mode of soft light. And now let me show you the before and after. So here is the before, the after, the before and after. And if you want to have that effect be more dramatic, you could change the blend mode up to overlay. And this is even a more dramatic look. But I actually like the way soft light looks in this case. So we're going to start by using soft light. So that's it for our first technique of adding a really nice dodge and burn look to our model. So to get started with the second one, I'm going to create a stamp layer. This is a combination of all the existing visible layers, and in this case we just have these two visible layers. And I'm going to create that stamp by a really long keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt-Shift-E. That's Control-Alt-Shift-E, which creates a stamp which is a combination of all our existing layers. So just like before, I'm going to create two copies of our stamp layer. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag the layer down to the plus. I'm going to drag it down to the plus again. And now this is going to give me the two layers that I need for this detail manipulation. So I want to make sure the top layer is selected. I'm going to hit shift click to select the second layer. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to group these layers together. So after I have both of these layers selected, I'm going to hit Control G. And I'm going to change the blend mode of that to overlay. And I'm going to open it up. I'm going to select our top layer. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with our dodge and burn look. I'm going to set it to vivid light. I'm going to invert it by hitting Control I. I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, Surface Blur. And the numbers that I found that work good for this effect are right around 40 and a threshold of about 15 to give you the look that I like. And as soon as this is done, I can show you that overall effect. So there's before and after, before and after, before and after. And so that is our second technique. So here we've added a dodge and burn and some really nice detail. And I'm just going to go ahead and group all of these together. And then I'm going to add one more thing, is I'm going to add a adjustment to add some saturation to the image. So I'm just going to add maybe right around 10. And so here's our before, here's our after. You can see what a dramatic difference that has made. And I do this with almost all of my photo manipulations. I hope these are some techniques that you can use in the future, and I hope to see you in future videos.